Let's talk about toxic family breakups. This will be a great episode because you and I both have experienced this personally, if not for years. And it's
Mhm.
tough. It's not something easy. And I feel like it's also, people will say it's cliche or things like that, but it's a real topic, a real thing that more people go through this, but they don't feel comfortable saying it out loud.
Yeah, it's a very controversial topic. Um, but I'll tell you, my thoughts are it's probably one of the biggest because it's the originator of how we relate to the world and to other people, to friends, to coworkers, to romantic partners. It is the foundation. It's a difficult topic just because of the fact that there's a lot of people that aren't ready for it. And it's because of that factor, well, it's family. Well, it's
Yes.
family.
Welcome to Heartbreak to Healed podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Baptiste from Rejected Hearts Club.
And I'm your host, Sophie Delcourt with Healing Soul Spiritual Center.
And we do the heartbreaks
so you can heal.
I think what we get stuck into and where we allow bad things to continuously happen, which then perpetuate a lack of healing, a lack of growth in
Mhm.
multiple areas, is hanging on to that cliche.
Mhm.
In reality, if you were to remove yourself from that situation, or think of it from coworkers' perspective, that the people you're related to are just people.
Mhm.
That's it, literally. They're your family because it requires physical activity to be born,
Mhm.
requirement on this earth.
Mhm.
Without that requirement, they're just people like
Mhm.
anybody else, down to even the jerk you hate.
Yeah. But we hold these quote unquote people on higher standards because you're born into this life or you're accepted into this life, like it's your family. So
Right.
basically what you're saying, where people are talking about, well, it's your family, you can't do anything. I have an example of this. So I don't have a relationship with my mom at all. It's unfortunate, but luckily I've come to the healing aspect of that, where I had to realize, is this person better in my life or is this person better outside of my life? Because on the
Mhm.
daily, when toxic things were happening, it ruins your entire day. You feel guilty because it is your parent and it's your mom. So recently, my dad, I was just calling to check in and I was just kind of telling him some things that were going on with me and things like that. And the first thing he said was, call your mom. He knows my mother and I have not spoken in years for a reason. I love my mom. I will always love my mom. We just don't mesh. It is what it is. That's where I'm at. So when people say because it's family, like you have to keep in touch and they know the situation and the history, it drives me. I cussed my dad out because you're bringing a topic that I've already let go. If I've
Mhm.
let it go, you need to let go. My father doesn't have a relationship with my mom, so why are you triggering me, badgering me over and over? He said this at least 10 times within 5 minutes for me to call my mom. There's no relationship. So you want me to pick up a phone to somebody, I don't care who it is. You want me to pick
Mhm.
up a phone and contact somebody that we have zero relationship? What am I going to say? I had to cut him off and I said, I am the child. I'm not the parent. Get over it. Don't bring your issues onto me when I was having a good day. And now you're bringing something up that I didn't feel like talking about because I have let it go. But clearly, I haven't let it go enough where if somebody's badgering about it, I'm still affected by it. I've been to therapy about it, things like that. It's just what it is. And it's literally okay. And I had to tell my dad, it's okay.
Yeah.
That's toxic as well.
It is. And and it's going to be hard because especially when the strife is in the parental realm,
Mhm.
because, as children, you're perceived a certain way. I mean, even stop and think about how, we're both parents. How do we perceive our kids?
Mhm.
So they're going through that. Now, on top of it, there's a generational gap,
Mhm.
right? They grew up differently, they feel differently about things, they've saw different things. The world was a different place when they were growing up, and those things stick with you always, you know. Um and they're going to speak from that perspective, that, because they've had to walk their lives too, right? And especially it just seems like, from what I keep hearing, not just my experience and not even just yours, but from others too, it is harder with the older generations because of the fact that that isn't the concept of, but it's family comes from
Mhm.
somewhere,
Mhm.
right? And the end all be all with family, like, like there's a permanent contract to it, and the
Mhm.
guilt behind it is just so extreme. Unfortunately, when you are talking about somebody, as a human being gets older, we get more stubborn.
Mhm.
And, rightfully so, because we've lived our lives, we've had our experiences. Each of us have at least survived up until that point, right?
Mhm.
So, we know something. We've been around the block multiple times.
And I told the situation to a best friend of mine, and
Mhm,
he said the same thing you're saying. My
mhm.
response is, "That's not an excuse. That's not an excuse to keep badgering somebody. I don't care if my dad is 100 years old and has lived a consistent life. I don't care.
Yeah,
You're still badgering somebody to not even to make amends. It's just that's not an excuse."
I know. And here's the thing. I don't either. I don't. I hear that when, my own dad is the one who tries to reach out to me. And because there's strife between myself and almost the entire rest of my nuclear family, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
Um, but when it comes down to it, it shouldn't be accepted. But this is why things are changing, by the way.
Mhm.
Our perspective of pulling away from the family and not allowing this is being slowly understood and accepted, because more and more of us are becoming sick of that treatment. We're
Mhm.
becoming sick of being disregarded, of being disrespected. It's really difficult. And especially, as if you are in a situation where it is parental, and if you are older like us, it's not like you're 18 years old getting mad, but
Yeah.
you're grown getting mad. We you you do get to a point, especially at this age, where you're just sick of bullshit.
Yeah.
But you also have to recognize every direction it's coming from. And if you want that bullshit to go away, you have to make it go away. And that means you need to resolve the issues. And sometimes resolving those issues requires walking away. And I say that because I would liken this to, and I've put this out there before, let's remove the family concept from this. Remove it. Let's put that person now into, let's pretend that person's a romantic partner,
Mhm. You wouldn't
whoever it is.
tolerate it. You just
Not.
wouldn't, and I say the same thing you're saying. If
Mhm,
it's, again, somebody walking down the street and they're treating you like garbage or a coworker that you're annoyed with, you're only gonna put it with that so often. But
mhm.
to revert back to the beginning of this conversation, because it's family, because it's your mom, because it's your dad. Okay, but is it okay if somebody in my family is abusing me? Is it okay if somebody in my family is just doing some crazy whack things, but somebody would judge the behavior of your friends doing it to you, or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever, as a bad person, but because it's family and it's your blood. So what? So
Yeah.
what?
That part, it doesn't matter. And this is a newfound concept. There are a lot of people out there. I know that there's going to be some people that listen to this episode and they get upset because
Mhm.
they will say that straight up. They side with, that concept of, but it's family and they
Mhm.
won't be there after so long and all this stuff. But really, but they're human beings and they're choosing to treat people a certain way.
Right.
That's the actual reality behind it. Yeah, we all had to come from family. You don't exist without it on earth. It's not possible.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean to allow yourself to be treated in a poor way. Yes, as a spiritualist, as a Reiki master, and as somebody who pursues healing of the inner person, the soul, the spirit, the heart, um, you see people completely different. So like my dad, okay, I get when he's trying to say something to me about it, because this has all been difficult to deal with, that I have to view him though as somebody coming from his particular experience that he's enlightened me on with many details, not all, but
Mhm.
many, and see that the things that he does say to me and his perspectives on things are coming from his walk of life.
Mhm.
They're coming from his own traumas. They're coming from a healing or a lack thereof as
Mhm.
well. And it's going to walk him into a certain path. So does everybody else. Just because I share blood with him doesn't make that any different.
Just me knowing you and knowing a lot of the backstory on your end, in comparison, it's all projection, that we're the ones that take the brunt of that. And then at what point do you say to yourself, like I said to myself, am I happier with this person in my life, or am I happier without them in my life? I had to make that decision in order to heal and move forward, because when I'm getting, I'd say, abusive emails from a family member, it put me in depression mode, because it is your family, because these are people that you grow up trusting. It's your blood, it's your family. So it's like somebody that close to you talking to you in a completely negative way,
Mhm.
and saying things about me that not that 100 people wouldn't say about me, but it's coming from your family member. That's beyond hurtful. So it's
Mhm.
like, do I wanna keep putting myself in a situation where I just feel hurt every time this person contacts me? Or do I just wanna let it go, and I don't have to have those feelings, because I'm gonna learn how to heal and move on?
And that is the bottom line to this. This is why this episode I feel is very, very important. It's about healing and moving forward with your life.
Mhm.
And ideally, it would be nice if we could all come to a resolution and come together as a family.
Correct.
Would
Like,
Beautiful. That would be wonderful. That is ideal. That is what I hope can happen on my
mhm,
end. That is what I'm trying to go for. I hope others are trying to do the same. But I'll tell you what, there are going to be moments in certain situations where resolution and coming together may not be the case. And it's because you have to depend on other people as people. That's why they're coming from their perspective. In order to have a relationship, everybody involved needs to be equally part of it,
mhm.
equally respected. Compromise in certain respects also have to be, and taken into account, and respected boundaries as well. Because
And both parties need to know how to listen to one another, instead of one person saying, "It's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault," or instead of one person just saying, "Here's why I feel you and I aren't getting along," that person can listen and accept it. Then the other person should be able to share, "Okay, well, here's my take. How do we meet in the middle?" Like
Yeah.
you were saying, I would love to have that relationship back. We've tried it. It's not working. I always say it's just like putting two magnets together that just will not fit and they won't attach.
Yeah.
And that's been the relationship. Is it unfortunate? Of course it is. Will I always be here if this person wants to contact me? 1,000% yes. But I'm not putting myself in the same situation that it's going to have the same bullshit result. That's not healthy for both my mom and I.
Given the years that have gone and the fact that, you did put in your efforts, the fact that you had to pull away, I mean, it is what it is because, you know, I've used this word before. I'm going to use it right now. And it's because it's a powerful word. I want people to think about this. When it comes to dealing with anybody, by the way, you are not a martyr. That means you don't just lay down for anybody to just treat you however they want. You're
Mhm.
responsible for your life.
Mhm.
And if you aren't doing well with it because you're being impacted by negative treatment from family or even from friends or whoever it may be, you need to stop and think about that. Because laying down just because it's family is acting as a martyr and it's doing zero for you and it's probably taking you down.
It's not the solution. It's not.
No, it's absolutely not the solution. And when people say that, it drives me bonkers because it's family, because it's so manipulative. It's meant to guilt trip you and to make you fear the loss of something. And that's the perfect way to control somebody. And do you know what that goes to? That's called abuse. I've had to bring this word up a couple of times and I'll do it again because that's the reality of it. We live in a strange society. There's a lot of maltreatment that goes on between human beings and it starts somewhere.
What would you say to people that are like, Jamie, Sophie, yes, I hear what you're saying. Like it's family and they're just like people. But what about that? We talk about this almost every show. The guilt that you hold. I feel like holding on to guilt for family breakups is a lot stronger than a partnership breakup. So what do
Mhm.
you tell people that's like, I get this, Sophie, I get this, Jamie, but it's my family, it's my mom, my dad, brother, sister. How can I live without them without feeling guilty on the daily basis?
Well, that has to, first of all, that has to deal with recognizing actually what I just said is being manipulated by fear and guilt. What that's doing is it's causing doubt. That doubt is causing a self-confidence issue, and that is making you believe and that you need somebody and fear not having them. But that's not living to your potential. That is not healing. That is not growing. By making the choice of playing a victim or playing a martyr in this situation, you are literally hurting yourself. And sometimes that means we need to purge, we need to shed the things that no longer serve us,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, does that mean do you just up and run?
No.
No, because we all make mistakes and there's going to be factors more than likely where you're involved and you're part of the issue. Doesn't mean you are to blame. No.
Mm-hmm.
But have you contributed? Yeah, everybody contributes to their own. I know I've got contributing factors to my own family issues because I'm
Mm-hmm.
not perfect. I'm a human being too, guys. You just really you definitely need to focus on you. And if you can't resolve it, then that's when you step away. In my own experience, the only way I was able to genuinely find myself, my talents, my peace, who I am to the core
Mm-hmm.
was by walking away. I needed to pull away from this environment that was shaping me to believe things and to feel a certain way that was holding me back.
What was the moment that made you walk away? What made that light bulb click?
The final straw had to do with the situation that actually included my brother. And there's a complex situation amongst all of them,
Mhm.
many factors, several that have been health related and whatnot, and then a lot of other extenuating factors that have made this all a big mess.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed my parents' help and understanding to try to deal with this. And they dismissed me yet again. That's been my problem. I get dismissed regularly. I'm never taken seriously. And that small factor turns into big things. Well, that was the last straw. It's been years and years and years of this, and nobody's changed anything, and they did it yet again, and I lost it. I was done. But it took a long time for me to realize that, because I was stuck in such a headspace because of this whole family concept, and especially with the way they did raise us, because we had family and extended family in our younger years, and then had to walk away from extended family because of major problems in that arena. But we were still, closer as a unit, as a nuclear unit. And they still, and they still have their closeness with what they've got going on with my siblings, and with them. But I had to step away. I was in a point in my life, I just was recognizing a lot of things that were wrong.
So what would you say to people that, one, still hang on, /2, are waiting for an apology from, let's just say, parents? If you're disconnected from your parents, one parent, whatever, are you waiting? What happens if you're like, I'm waiting for an apology because I know it's not my fault? What do you say to that?
It depends, I guess, on the headspace of what you mean by waiting for that apology. There's a lot of people who are going to hang on to that, and it's going to eat at them, whether or not they get an apology. I'm going to tell you this now, and I'm sure actually if a lot of people were to sit back and think about this, there'd be a lot of people who'd agree. Not everybody. Some people are lucky. More than likely, you won't ever get an apology from your parents. It's not how they see things. So more than likely they won't, because they're in a position of power, the upper hand. They'll see you forever as that child. You could be 60, they could be 85, and they're still going to see you as their kid. That's a hard perspective, and it takes active thinking to make that switch as a parent and see your kid for who they are, especially as they grow into an adult and as they age as an adult. In my personal experience, yes, I'm waiting for an apology. Am I hanging on to it?
No.
Am I expecting it? No. Will I accept it if they happen to give it? Yes. Here's the catch. I will accept the apology with follow through and actions.
That was going to be my next question to you. You can apologize morning, noon, and night. I just said this to somebody earlier. I'm not a person that needs I'm sorries, because your I'm sorry means nothing if the situation has not changed. I've had apologies from parents, but it's not been because of the situations. And in your situation, sure, you can get an apology, but what does that apology mean in your situation? What does that mean? How is that going to change your dynamics?
Honestly, for me, it won't unless I see action, because I have been given an apology a couple times. And then the same thing happens.
So the apology means nothing.
Correct.
Just like that Seinfeld episode, stuff your sorries in a sack. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. There's so much emphasis on saying words that we forget to follow through. And those of us who are causing the harm are going to often rely on that word, I'm sorry. And when you rely on that, things don't change.
Exactly. And how we talk about with raising kids or things, if there's no consequences, they're going to keep doing the same dumb stuff, right? So with family, it's the same thing with the I'm sorries. You can say I'm sorry a billion times. If the situation has not changed after any I'm sorry, it's not changing because there's been no consequences. So in a lot of situations, the consequence is having the person literally step back. It's affecting somebody else. It's affecting the person that's not doing anything. And I'm not saying
Yep.
that, there's always two parties involved,
Mhm.
1,000%. But when that one party just keeps bringing like the negative energy and making somebody feel so low, and
Mhm.
I'm sorry, doesn't cut it. It's actions. If both parties cannot come to a mutual agreement or understanding of each other and one's boundaries, I'm sorry means nada. Nothing at all.
Yep. And that's where I, you know, there's many times I don't even care about an apology because of the fact that not just them, but a lot of people in my life have fallen through. Those apologies ended up meaning nothing.
Right.
So what's the point?
There is no point.
Yeah.
There's no point if there's no action.
Correct. It's just a space filler, blowing air for nothing. A lot of times there is a black sheep in the family as
Mhm.
well. That does not mean that they're like the lowlifes of the family either.
Right. It's just
Okay.
different from what you expect out of somebody, or
Yeah.
because you don't agree with what they're doing, unless they're just doing, like, bad, crazy things in this life. Okay, we get it, but just because they're not doing what you thought you molded them to do or things like that, it's okay.
Yes. And I just want people to realize, especially if you are the black sheep, and even more so if you're the recognized black sheep of the family, more than likely resolution for you is not going to come. You have to understand that and be able to accept it.
Mhm.
That's really, really, really hard. And you know what? The more unusual you are, the harder it is, because
Mhm.
we're put in a society where being unique and different and all of that, actually, there is no place for it. Even if we try to say that out loud, we try to preach it. It's another one of those things you need follow through for it to be an honest statement. This is another one of those arenas that people screw up,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so if you are the black sheep of your family, just know that more than likely that won't come. And you are going to need to make some decisions in order to move forward with your life in the best way in which you can. You need to allow yourself that grace. You need to accept yourself for your differences and know that you don't martyr yourself for your family just because of that wonderful phrase, it's family, right?
So in your situation, 2 questions.
Mhm.
1, do you feel like your family is waiting on an apology from you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They want me to come to my senses. I'm being unreasonable. I'm living in the past.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm the bad person causing the problems because I'm the one who chose to walk away. You
So do
see.
you feel like you've been the chosen black sheep of the family?
Yeah, I'm definitely the different one. I am like through and through. It is that no question about it, and recognized. I'm one of those that it's recognized by the rest of the family as well, that I am the oddball. Um, which is fine. I mean, look at what I do. How many people, I wonder if there's people who listen to this podcast and they're like, what is Reiki? And then they go look it up and they're like, that one's nuts. Okay. Right. My family is amongst that group where they feel like I'm that way because I'm just so different.
So if you just said, "I'm sorry," then that means we're back to quote unquote "normal" from their perspective,
Yeah. And I should fall in line and do what they want me to do.
which is what?
Um, which is participate in family activities as they see fit,
Mhm.
to relate to the family amongst their perspective too, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even just one-on-one kind of thing. Um, to, right down to how I handle situations that might even be outside of what's going on with them, that it should be, within their line of opinion and thought process. It took me a long time to realize that, because there isn't anything that's clearly major. There is no physical abuse or anything extreme like that. There is
Mm-hmm.
no even extreme, like, verbal abuse.
Mm-hmm.
There's hard moments, sure, and things that could definitely be handled better.
Mm-hmm.
But there isn't anything extreme. And that's where people get, they get twisted.
Confused. Yeah. It's crazy because it is a hard situation. Again, you and I aren't sitting here talking about like, oh my God, my ex-boyfriend or my husband did this. Like but when you literally talk about family, it just cuts deeper. And it's either because you're molded from day one, like that is your lifeline. These are the people that are raising you. This is how either you came into this life or how somebody's accepted you in this life.
Hmm.
Different situations, different things, of course. But again, hanging on because it's your blood, it's your family, it's your mom, it's your dad, it's this, and that. But again, if we're sitting here talking about an ex-boyfriend, then people would be like, "Oh my God, they're horrible. Like, yeah, I cut him off, blah, 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 blah." So at
Hmm.
what point in this life, or can we tell people that unfortunately it is okay, even though it sucks, and it will suck for a long time because unfortunately you will hold on to that guilt. And like you're saying, like a lot of situations aren't these damaging, like abusive things like that. They're just consistent situations that keep repeating. And it's
Yes.
when you wake up and say, I'm not accepting this, that that's when I feel like you take your power back. Like you're saying, it took me years to get to that point. My mom
Hmm.
and I would go through situations, even from a teenager, where we just wouldn't talk because we could not get on the same page. So either we were the best of friends or each other's worst enemies, but there was no abuse. There's no situation that's like, oh my God, like I did this to her, she did this to me. It was just a consistent pattern that for some reason we could not break.
Hmm. And I mean, you can go into all sorts of topics when it comes to looking at these situations and why they're the case and things like that. And, you got different personalities, you've got different souls, you've got different life purposes. And even down to one of the things in my world is you are meant to go through certain challenges in order to learn specific things in
Yeah.
life, right?
Yeah.
That's going to include the family that you go into.
Yes. So even when I told you how we began this conversation, my dad like nudging me, nudging me, nudging me,
I know.
I unfortunately had to cuss him out. That's the dynamics in that relationship. However, I took a step back, realized my own actions, and I apologized to him for my tone and blowing up. But I also re explained my reasoning as to you can't keep pushing things on me that I don't accept. I'm like, you're literally nudging me and it's getting old. I'm like, you do this a lot and I'm tired of tolerating it. So if you can't respect these boundaries, it's kind of the same thing. If I could do this to mom, then I can do it to you. Like,
Yeah.
you have to respect these boundaries or else you're going to keep pushing people away.
Yes. And I unfortunately had a moment like that several months ago with my sister, because she would love for everything to go back to the way it was or how she envisioned. I had to
Mhm.
literally tell her to stop as she was being overbearing, or I couldn't talk to her anymore either, and it would have
And
been
what
done.
was their response to that?
She let it go.
Okay.
I think she was realizing that as being pretty serious, even though it's very frustrating for her, because she's watching this and not quite understanding, and there's a lot of complications, behind that, and why they are the way they are. It's okay, because I've accepted me for me. It's okay because I have also accepted my family and all of them as individuals for who they are, not as family, as people. That does help bring a lot of peace once you recognize that and you can see people like in that light. If you feel like you could not function or you would have a hard time making decisions without certain family members helping you, if you fear that, if that gives you anxiety at all, if you question yourself, you need to now ask yourself why. And maybe you need to consider the situation you're in. If you feel like a decision you would make will upset your family and really upset them, honestly, a lot of these decisions are for no good reason. If you're just trying to make a regular choice that is not going to be to the detriment of anybody, and you fear the choice that you want to make, or you can't make it, it's another red flag. You need to consider your family dynamic and where that's coming from.
I would say to wrap this up is being able to recognize behavior that you don't want to tolerate and figuring out either how to take a step back, or if you want to move forward, then know how to communicate with this other person in your life that just happens to be family and see how you guys can get on the same page. We want everybody to win, obviously. So some situations will be different. If people can win by having with a toxic family member or whomever, that is amazing. Let us know in the comments as well. If you guys have actually healed a toxic relationship without stepping away, I'd like to know more about that. But anything else for you to wrap this up for the good people?
Just know that this conversation that Jamie and I are putting out there for everybody to hear, we understand is touchy, but we do it out of love. We do it for healing. That's the whole point of what we do. And as much as this is touchy, it does need to be talked about. And if it bothers you, also take that as something that you need to consider for you, because you're still most important, period. If you feel like that you may be in this kind of a situation, to literally use the analogy, whoever you might think is the issue in your life, go ahead and actually visualize the role of that person as somebody else. And would you accept it from that somebody else? If you would not accept it from that somebody else, you've identified your problem, and you need to not accept it from that family member either.
Yeah, well said. And leave us comments, and we want to hear from you guys. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Until next time, we are Heartbreak to Healed, and we love you guys.
Yes.
Take my heart.